Abandoned factories, houses, plants, and other enterprises have always piqued my genuine interest. I've always been curious about what lies inside these buildings, how people lived there, and what transpired within their walls. This interest wasn't unique to me. There are many enthusiasts like me who, despite the dangers, venture into places where most people wouldn't even consider going. We have our own themed forums and websites where we share photos, stories, and other information about the places we visited. There you can find details on how to get to certain locations, what difficulties we encountered, and exactly what we saw there. My friends and I, who constantly explored various places together, were registered on one such site. It contained a vast amount of information about nearly any abandoned building that might be of interest. Photos, videos, comments from those who filmed it all, and feedback from other users. Sometimes it ignited the imagination so much that you want to drop everything and go in search of some abandoned complex where no one has ever set foot before you. The site served as a kind of directory where you could find a wealth of information about any site, as well as find out its exact location on a map. This was, of course, useful information. But I was slightly more interested in a section labeled Unexplored Places. In particular, it mentioned a small town or urban-type settlement that wasn't on any map. By all indications, it belonged to a closed type. This place was discovered by one group that was moving slightly west of it but, deviating from their route, came to its outskirts. They didn't go into details, just took a few photos, left the coordinates, and, without revealing any specifics, moved on to where they had planned. Information about this place appeared almost 3 months ago, but the discussion didn't go any further. Everyone seemed to want to go there, have a look, take more photos. But some didn't have time, others found it inconvenient, and still others were just waiting for someone to go there themselves so they could later enjoy the photos without risking their health and wallet. To get there, you really needed to be in excellent health. The terrain was challenging: forests, swamps, bodies of water. After reading the comments from the group that crossed this territory, I realized that this would not be a simple stroll. They complained that even the devil would break his hooves before walking a few kilometers there. Dense forests, mosquitoes, stuffiness, and incredible humidity. It was impossible to sleep normally. Everything was damp. Mosquitoes pestered day and night. They also mentioned that there were a lot of animal trails in that area, and they crossed them more than once. In general, curses were pouring from all the participants of that hike, and everyone said that it was the last time they went in that direction and to that very site. No matter how much they cursed this place, no matter what they said about it, the desire to get to this town did not disappear. On the contrary, it only intensified. And I can say that this desire was not unfounded. Firstly, you would be the first to visit there. For people like me, that's already a lot. It means you take great photos, see interesting places, have a look at how and what people live there. In general, it would be interesting at the very least. No less important was the fact that you would be the first to visit all the houses and structures, where many interesting things might be found. It happened that such stalkers found some city, underground complex, or nook where no one had been before them. They would take out equipment or devices that, even by our standards, cost incredible money. But this town was exactly the case where there was really something to see. In the photographs, 5 to 7-story buildings were visible, judging by the young trees growing nearby. Apparently, the place had been abandoned for a long time, and from the location of the buildings, it was clear that there were several streets in this town. The map showed that in the place where the town stood, there was just a dense forest, and there were no roads, let alone a town. But that didn't mean anything. Sometimes it happens that you can find an existing settlement on the map, which is also still inhabited by people. Such places that weren't marked on maps were not built just like that. They were definitely doing something there, and most likely something serious. Because the costs of building such a place were simply colossal. But that's all lyrical. In reality, there might be nothing interesting in that town. There could be empty apartments, and everything of any value could have been taken away. But it could also happen that the people who worked there were evacuated, and the town itself was put into conservation, leaving a minimum number of people to guard it while the bulk of the population left. Then it all became unnecessary to anyone. The people who looked after it left, and the equipment remained. In general, there were many options, and which one I would get, I could only guess. A hike is a serious matter, especially to such places. You need to think through every detail. What might be needed? How much of everything to take? I packed my backpack for 3 days, constantly taking something out or adding something. But those who often go on hikes know. No matter how well you pack, you'll still forget something. Flashlights, camera, compass, printed map, and a million other little things that are necessary just to get to the place. And you also need to think about food, what to cook it in and how. In general, the preparations were long and quite stressful. As a result, my backpack weighed 23 kilograms, of which 5 kilograms was plain water. Who knows when you'll be able to get it, and whether you'll be able to at all. And I am not going to drink muck from a pond full of parasites. It's all fairy tales that if you pass the water through a filter and boil it, the parasites will die. In some places, the water is so dirty that no filter will help. So no matter how much water you take, it will never be superfluous. Now about the route. From the place where we were going to start, it was about 38 kilometers to that very town. It seems like a ridiculous distance that can be covered in a day. But that's only how it seems. The terrain there is impassable, and part of the way went through boggy territory. Not that there were real swamps there, but the ground was so saturated with moisture that you had to walk almost through mud. On the way, we were supposed to stop at one place that was not far from the town. These were summer cottages. There were not many of them there, only 4 or 5. We could spend the night there safely and reach the city the next morning. The 3 of us arrived at the place where our journey began. Nick, me, and Artem, all loaded with backpacks, disgruntled, stood at the bus stop, smoked, and discussed the details of the route. "Shall we go straight to the city?" Artem asked. "No, we'll spend the night in those summer cottages and head to the city in the morning," I replied. "I don't like your summer cottages," said Zhenya. "Creepy place. In what way?" I asked. "Well, judging by the photos, the town is big, but there are very few cottages there. And the previous group wrote that there are bones that look human lying near the dried-up well." "So what?" I replied. "They could have said something to boost their credibility." "I doubt it. Those guys have been stalking for a long time. It's unlikely they would make up something like that." "Well, even if they are human bones, so what? Are you afraid of bones?" "No." "Then what are you worried about? You'll just spend the night there." After a short discussion about the cottages and the bones that managed to scare Zhenya, we set off according to plan. We walked in silence. The weather did not lend itself to enjoying nature. Rather, it was annoying. Branches constantly clung to backpacks, scratched faces and hands. And this was only the beginning. With each meter passed, nature seemed to mock us. The density of bushes and fallen trees, which had to be constantly bypassed, increased. And there was a temptation to turn back. But, as you know, you can't quit a business you've already started. Moreover, the 3 of us had been preparing for this hike for a month. Everything was fine until the humidity began to increase. At first, we just walked on wet grass. And then we stepped almost through mud. "There were rains here," said Artem, who was walking ahead. "And, it seems, there is a swamp nearby. That's why the ground is so soggy," Zhenya replied. "We still have a long way to go," I said. "Are you already tired?" "Well, actually, yes. I am a delicate person. You know, I don't carry a huge backpack through the weeds every day. I'd like to have a snack and rest already." We've only gone 7 kilometers, I replied. "Let's have a snack." "Let's," Zhenya agreed. We stopped. Zhenya took chewing gum out of his pocket and said, "You know, I really hope there will be something interesting there. Just imagine how annoying it will be if we get there and there's nothing." "I doubt it," said Artem, taping up his chafed fingers. "I don't like this route more. Usually, we went by easier paths. And here it's as if everything was deliberately complicated. But there will be something to remember," I said. "That's right," Zhenya replied, "but my legs are already buzzing from this walking." "Ours are buzzing too, so don't be upset. You're not alone," I said, taking out a flask. After a 15-minute break, we moved on. We broke bushes and tried not to get lost in this forest disorder. There is no particular point in telling how we walked through the forest. We walked and cursed, swore, stumbled over roots, and at some point even thought about turning back. We didn't meet any wild animals, which I was glad about. Meeting a boar would have been superfluous. Having gone through all these hardships, we didn't notice how we came to those very summer cottages. "What time is it?" I asked when I saw the first dilapidated house. "Almost 6, Artem replied, unhooking burdock from his pants. "Well, we'll spend the night here, and in the morning we'll head to the city." "Maybe we should get there now?" Zhenya suggested. "Here's what you need. You go, but I am not going anywhere until morning, personally," said Artem. But we still decided to look around. Of all the houses, we chose the one in which, apparently, the previous group had recently stayed overnight. They left order behind them and a small gift, a note. "Bon appetit, guys," was written on the note that lay next to several cans of stewed meat. "The guys have a sense of humor," said Zhenya, examining the stove. "Yeah," Artem grumbled. "Well, shall we settle down right in the kitchen?" "Yes, it will be calmer here," I said, unpacking my backpack. The kitchen was small. Of the amenities, a stove that was well preserved and even burned properly. A table and 5 chairs, which, it seems, were brought from neighboring houses. That's all the benefits we had. But we didn't need more. I threw off my backpack, spread out my things, and decided to take a walk around the small yard to see what surrounded us. Behind the house was a bathtub full of water, a broken greenhouse, and a doghouse that caught my attention. A neat white skeleton lay by the booth, chained. Horror, I thought, approaching and taking a few photos. Apparently, the owners hurriedly left this place and forgot about the dog. Or something happened and it died on a leash. The rest of the yard didn't particularly impress me, and I went back. The stove was already crackling. Zhenya was stoking it, and Artem was taking care of his chafed places. Without wasting time, I set about cooking food. I got out a pot, onions, peppers, and, of course, stewed meat. The cans left for us, we did not open, but neatly removed from the table. "Well, shall we begin?" I said. I took Artem's pot, poured water, and put it on the stove, which was already well heated. While the water was heating, I chopped the onion and decided how much stewed meat to add. In this matter, people are divided into 2 types. Those who cook porridge with stewed meat and those who cook stewed meat with porridge. I, oddly enough, belong to the latter. So I added a can of stewed meat for each. After all these preparations, first the cereal went into the pot, then the stewed meat, and only then the onion. Onion is a very useful and wonderful vegetable. Even the most boring dish it can turn into a culinary masterpiece. So I didn't spare it and added it properly. Wonderful aromas of cooked food began to spread around. I was even afraid that someone would smell this scent and come to us. But everything worked out. We ate, freshened up, prepared for tomorrow's hike, and settled on the floor of the kitchen in sleeping bags. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, and despite the fatigue, we didn't feel like sleeping. The stove was crackling nearby, casting orange glare on the floor. "Maybe we should watch a movie?" Artem suggested. "Do you have the internet?" I asked. "No, but I have downloaded movies on my phone." "Wow," I said. I thought such people were already extinct. Usually, no one downloads anything. Old habit, Artem replied. And here, by the way, it's just the thing. We put the phone on the table, sat on the floor, backs to the wall, and started watching. What exactly we were watching, I don't remember. Something old. I sat for literally 5 minutes, and then I was just knocked out. I was woken up early in the morning. Instead of enjoying the sounds of nature, I heard rain outside the window and made a disgruntled grimace. My whole body ached. Legs, back, arms, everything was buzzing. Well, shall we get to the city? Artem asked when I finally got up. Yes. Where to go? I replied. Then let's go. Breakfast was silent. The food wouldn't go down my throat. The fine rain that dripped incessantly spoiled the mood. While I ate and struggled with the pains in my body, I remembered that I still had to go back. And I almost cried. After breakfast, I took a painkiller so that my body wouldn't twist so much with every movement, and we got ready to go. In the morning fog, the city looked eerie and mysterious. I got out my camera and took a few shots. Silence reigned in the city, broken only by the rain. Let's go to the first house, I said in a whisper, pointing to the entrance that was a few meters away. Why are you whispering? Artem asked just as quietly. I didn't answer. Who knows why I'm whispering? Silence all around, and it's somehow awkward to speak out loud. We quickly reached the first entrance and went into the first apartment. Oh, wow, I uttered when we found ourselves in the kitchen. I had only heard about this, thought it was a fairy tale to scare. But apparently it was true. There were plates on the table, cutlery, the remains of bread, and on the stove stood a pot with what was once soup. We went inside and froze on the threshold, looking at this picture. Yes, of course, everything was in a state of ruin. Without heating and moisture, the apartment had undergone significant wear and tear. But, damn it, it all looked pretty decent. Well, guys, bingo, I said. It's too early to draw conclusions, Zhenya replied. We need to look around. Then let's look around. I'll start with this room. If anything, we'll meet here. Someone will say that true connoisseurs of abandoned places always leave everything as it is. And I will answer, maybe so. But if you think about it, what's the difference, you take it or someone else? I don't pretend to have high moral standards. Like everyone else, I want to eat. So everything that is not nailed to the floor and has some value, I take with me. I entered the apartment on the 5th floor as if it were my own home and began to carefully search for what might interest me. Photos, sets of dishes, and other little things did not interest me. But various jewelry, wristwatches, or chain watches, that's what I love. I searched the living room and 2 rooms from top to bottom but was dissatisfied. I only found 1 gold ring. Well, you could also grab a gramophone that stood in the hall, but I didn't come here by car, but on foot. So things had to be light, compact, and as valuable as possible. Coming out of the first apartment, I went into the apartment opposite. Noting that everything there was in the same condition, I began my search. In the second apartment, I was met by a bicycle that was lying on the floor. When I was little, I always wanted one like that, but they wouldn't buy it for me, I thought, looking at it. Having searched the apartment, I decided to go downstairs and call everyone to discuss further actions. Do we stay here or go further into the city? I asked. There's a building with the letter P there. Bars on all the windows, Zhenya said. Bars? Maybe we should go see what they were hiding there that was so important? I suggested. Or maybe forget it, said Artem. Why go somewhere? I am fine here. What difference do you think is in that building? Well, what difference? I replied. Suddenly something terrible happened there. For example, some contagion. People fled. They didn't even have time to take everything. And now we retouching it all with our hands. I hadn't thought of that, said Artem. By the way, I found a strange apartment, Zhenya said. Strange? What's strange about it? I asked. The door is locked. So what? Well, it's just that all the doors are open, and these are the only ones that are locked. Let's go see, I said. On the third floor, there really was a locked door. We discussed it and decided that out of curiosity, we needed to open it. With all my strength, I kicked the door, but it didn't even budge. Then we stood and thought about how to break it down. Maybe, like in that movie, said Artem, hit it again? I hit it again, and this time the door gave way. The blow was so strong that crows flew off a nearby birch tree. Let's get out of here, said Artem, starting to gather to run. Zhenya grabbed him by the collar and said, stand still. No one is going anywhere. I understood why he said that. There's no point in running. Whoever was there already knows we're here. And if we run away, we'll leave him behind us, giving him complete freedom of action. Calm down, I said to Artem. I hit the door, and something fell inside. Maybe a closet or something. It sounded quite absurd, but it worked on Artem. He calmed down, and we continued. The door was broken, and before going inside, Zhenya said, if anything, no one saw or knows anything. Of course, I replied, and we entered. Well, who's the smart one here? Zhenya asked, entering the living room and examining the cabinets. This was the only place in the room where you could hide. But there was no one in the closet, just like in the other room. We thoroughly searched the apartment and became more and more convinced that there was no one there. Maybe something fell outside, Artem said. Maybe so, Zhenya replied, realizing that Artem was just afraid. But we knew that there was someone else in this city besides us. Ideally, we should have left from there. But we saw no obvious signs of danger. Whoever hit the door was afraid of us himself. After all, if he wanted to harm us, he could have come out openly. But he only scared us. Perhaps it was someone from the same stalkers who hid in the apartment, and then, when we began to break down the door, decided to frighten us away. The building we were heading to looked like an ordinary school, but there were two strange things. Bars on the windows and the absence of any signs or signboards that would explain what kind of place it was. Well, moment of truth, I said when we stopped at the entrance. Almost, Zhenya replied, looking at the building. What time is it now? Beginning of 7, said Artem. We somehow lingered too long in those apartments. I thought we'd spend an hour or two here. Where will we spend the night? Here or do we go back? Here, probably, I said. Or maybe we should go back. Artem suggested. No, if we go back, it will take a long time to get out. And in the evening it will be problematic at all. We went inside. At first glance, the building resembled an ordinary school. But instead of desks in the classrooms, there were strange devices that I had never seen before. Iron cabinets the size of a table, various flasks, microscopes, ropes, wires on the ceiling, test tubes, measuring cups, and God knows what else. We entered a classroom that was different from the others. There were ordinary cabinets in it, on the shelves of which lay folders with documents. Now we'll find out what they were doing here, I said, taking the first folder with documents. But most of the documents were ruined by moisture, and it was impossible to read them. The ones I could decipher gave no understanding at all. While I was reading and rummaging through the papers, the guys were searching the neighboring classrooms. By the sounds they made, I realized that there was something interesting there. An hour later they returned. Well, what does it say? Zhenya asked. That it's time to eat and wrap it up. Tomorrow we'll walk around here until lunchtime, and we need to get back. Why? Artem asked. They were doing some kind of medical research here, but from what I understood, nothing specific. But there were some scary words, like test subjects, or experiments. Well, good, said Zhenya, closing the door. And what's this for? Artem asked. There's someone else here besides us. While I was walking around the classroom, I saw two people running across the street in the distance. So we eat and sleep in shifts. One keeps watch. Artem took the first shift, then me, and the last one, Zhenya. Get up, Your turn, said Artem, touching my shoulder. What's the matter? I asked. Everything is fine, it's just your shift. I looked at my watch and saw that it really was my time. They gave me a phone with downloaded movies and headphones so I wouldn't be bored sitting. I sat in the corner, my back to the wall, so that the light from the phone would not be visible through the window. Sometimes I took off my headphones and listened to the sounds in the building. Rustling, strange, incomprehensible sounds. Somewhere the cawing of a crow, somewhere the creak of a tree. It was creepy, but among these sounds, I clearly heard one, very suspicious. Have you ever heard someone walk on wet grass? That's exactly the sound I heard. Someone was stepping carefully, as if knowing that one of us was not sleeping. It made me very nervous. Whoever was scaring us was now literally a few meters away from us. If it weren't for the bars on the windows, I would have tried to catch him. Suddenly the sound intensified. Someone was running up the stairs. It wasn't the stomping of a person, but rather the sound of large animals. What is it? Zhenya asked. I have no idea, I replied. We rushed to the doors, began to block them with cabinets. We put one cabinet by the window so that we could not be seen. Where is there electricity here? Zhenya asked, pushing the last cabinet. I have no idea, I replied. The stomping intensified. Someone was running on the second floor. We sat quietly, trying not even to breathe. I heard someone come to the window, I whispered. Did you see who it was? Artem asked. No, I was sitting in the corner. I thought they would come closer now, then I would look. The stomping intensified again. It was a sound similar to the running of large dogs, but it was something bigger and heavier. The sound disappeared at the entrance to the building, but we continued to sit quietly. Someone was carefully walking down the corridor, stepping on garbage. The steps approached the doors and stopped. We were sitting, almost hugging each other, ready at any moment to rush at the doors so as not to let them open. Suddenly someone pushed on the doors, but the cabinets that we had propped them with didn't even budge. Then we heard the steps recede. We sat like that all night, waiting for that mysterious someone to return. But nothing else happened. As soon as it dawned, we dismantled the cabinets and left that city. Well, friends, that concludes our horror portion today. But remember, the darkness is always around, and it is waiting for its time to remind you again. If you enjoyed tickling your nerves and dive into the world of mystery and mysticism, do not forget to put a like, comment and, of course, subscribe to the channel. After all, ahead of you awaits more chilling stories that make your blood run cold in your veins. Click on the bell to not miss new videos, and remember, sometimes the worst is what is hidden in silence. See you in the next installment. Unless, of course, you're afraid.